Hi, everyone. My name is Scott Morris. I'm the Director of Business Development for Gaming for GTS Distribution, which is a really, really long way of just saying I'm the board game guy. And I am joined here today with John from SRG Universe, and we're going to be talking about their product called Super Show. Now, I am personally extremely excited about this one for two reasons. One, I like John. He's a great partner, and him and Steve, the two owners, are wonderful people to work with, and they make a great product. But number two, that great product is focused around one of my lifelong passions, which is professional wrestling. And I have been a big-time wrestling fan since I was a kid. I grew up in the Poughkeepsie area of New York and used to go to the Mid-Hudson Civic Center to watch the U.S. Express take on, Ivan Koloff and Nikita Koloff and all these guys from the 80s. And it was just so much fun and so many good memories. But today we're going to talk about their product, which is called Super Show. We're going to go into a little bit about the background of the company so you can learn more about them. You may be asking yourself, like, why are we talking about a wrestling game? Well, wrestling is actually a gigantic industry, absolutely global, gigantic, billion-dollar industry. And John and I were just talking prior to setting up this recording about how other than the WWE Raw Deal game, which some of you retailers may remember from decades ago, literally at this point, there really hasn't been a focused and really passionately driven product into this marketplace for the people that love it. And I can tell you from being firsthand at some of the events that SRG has done at shows when we used to have shows, but also now on Twitch, there is so much high energy around this product, and the people who like this product, they love it. They just consume it and they eat it up and they're ravenous about it. So this should be a really, really good conversation. So with that, I'd like to introduce John. He is the CFO and co-founder of SRG Universe. John, thank you so much for coming. I really appreciate you taking the time to talk to the retailers, and we're looking forward to the presentation you have to share.
Scott, thanks for having me on. And if you recall, it was years ago at Origins that I gave you one of my personal demos, and not knowing that you were with GTS at the time, we just had a blast playing. I recall it being I'd say a 4-star match, Scott. Me versus you.
It was pretty good. It was pretty good. Yeah, I remember walking away from that meeting, telling my boss and my owner, I'm like, I just had possibly the single best demo experience of my life. So.
Yes, and I deeply appreciate that. And like Scott said, my name is John Calais. I'm a co-founder here at SRG Universe. I'm also the CFO, and I'm also the general manager, which is a fancy way of saying I run the competitive play for Super Show the game. I'm going to bring you into this presentation here. I'm going to start off by introducing the SRG Universe team, or as we call the SRG Universe family. Myself there on the left, and my co-founder Steve Resk and his wife Samantha. We founded this company back in 2014, and like Scott said here in the intro, WWE Raw Deal was the only collectible card wrestling game out there. And I played it avidly when I was younger, as did Steve. We played against each other competitively at times. And I noticed that Steve was number 7 in the world, and we're talking hundreds of thousands of players, if some of you recall how big that game was. I pulled Steve aside one day, years after the game was gone, both of us looking for a wrestling game. And I said, what was your secret? And we talked about Raw Deal for a long time. And he told me that he was developing another wrestling game because, quite frankly, we all just missed it. We missed the fun, being like we were at a live wrestling show, having a good time playing games. And me and Steve ended up founding this company in 2014. Also a member of our team here, you have Griff Briggs, who runs our operations, and our lead graphic designer, his wife, Jennifer. So we're really a family company. That's how we've always been, just a bunch of wrestling nerds who love what we do, watch wrestling avidly, and have been lifelong gaming fans and players. And we talk about Super Show the game, like we said, it's a wrestling game, but we want you to look at it as the #1 wrestling game in the world, where you can live all of your wildest wrestling fantasies without ever taking a chair shot. Who doesn't have a dream of wanting to get in the ring at some point? But you don't want to get hit over the head with a chair or something, so you get the experience like you are in the ring wrestling somebody, but safely. And we say #1 wrestling game because on Board Game Geek we are an 8.3, which is the highest rating wrestling game on there the last time that I checked.
That's amazing, especially given the fact that, and this is no offense to it, it's just the reality of the situation, Board Game Geek can tend to be a sea of 6s and 7s. So that's kind of like our staple when we as a distributor are looking at games. Anything that's an 8 or higher, that's something that has a fan base. That's something that has a good amount of people attached to it that are interested in the product. So it's funny when you mention not, getting in the ring without ever taking a chair shot. For some reason, all I can think of are the Stone Cold Steve Austin ESPN commercials when he would run around and hit people with the chairs.
Oh gosh, I love it.
Great stuff. Great stuff.
I love it. And so let's talk a bit about the history of SRG Universe in case you're unfamiliar with us as a company. We founded in 2014. It was at that Gen Con that we sold our prototypes. We sold them in Chinese food containers. Some said we were crazy. We would walk in there. The reason for that is you get a little Chinese food container and you get invited into the legendary Fighting Federation, which is where we compete. That's the name of our federation. So you get your little Chinese food container with your invite to compete in the Underground Wrestling Federation. We funded successfully on Kickstarter shortly thereafter. And very quickly, we started to gain some share of the independent wrestlers, some of the biggest names out there. Me and Steve are big wrestling fans. We traveled to all these shows, wrestling schools, and we met folks like the Young Bucks and Kenny Omega, who, I'm sure that for all of you wrestling fans know that those are two of some of the biggest names out there in the industry right now. As Scott said, wrestling is a tremendously large sports platform on TNT, also on several other networks like Fox. And we signed them back in 2016 and continued to grow our presence of signing real wrestlers into this game and getting them to show up at events and promote themselves. Just a year then later, we sponsored Gen Con 50, which I'm sure many of you were at. What a great spectacle that was, and really, really started to get our name out there more. Started to work with Scott and his team after a demo at Origins back in 2018. And then our biggest flavor is to host wrestling shows. We don't want to just host tournaments. We want to host experiences. We want to bring in the referee, the general manager, the ring announcer. And we held one of our largest convention style events in 2019, which was a tremendous success, sold out in just a week. Obviously, we could not do another one this year as planned due to the pandemic. And in 2020, and what's on the horizon is that we signed a licensing deal with New Japan Pro Wrestling, one of the biggest global organizations in wrestling, and that'll be released early in 2021. And we plan on doing a lot more of these kind of licensing deals in the future. Scott's excited for New Japan.
I am. I'm gonna give everybody kind of a little history lesson here on this timeline too about why it's so important. A lot of people, if you're not familiar with the wrestling business, are more than likely familiar with the WWE or what was the WWF. They've obviously been around the longest. They're the largest company in the world, and they're much more than just a wrestling company. They're an entertainment company overall. The last couple of years, pretty much, if you look at that timeline, since about 2016 and forward, the revival of the industry of wrestling has really come from the independent wrestling organizations. It's been these smaller Ring of Honor, MLW, New Japan Pro Wrestling, and New Japan Pro Wrestling, I hesitate to even call indie because it's really the WWE of Japan. It is the biggest thing in Japan. They pack out the Tokyo Dome somewhere of like 100,000 plus people when they have shows. It's unbelievable. But there was this almost monopoly in the United States, or at least, or most of Europe as well, of the WWE being the only thing that you could consume if you were a fan of this product. And then slowly the industry started to evolve, and these indie stars like Kenny Omega, like the Young Bucks, Cody Rhodes, people who were very, very famous amongst the wrestling fans, started to get a little more savvy in their business. And last year, I think it was 2019, is when AEW officially started, which was the first real true competitor to WWE in over 20 years. And now a lot of the wrestlers that are mainstays, and some of them, even like you have here, Kenny Omega and the Young Bucks, those guys are executive vice presidents of All Elite Wrestling right now. And the ownership of that company is traced back to Tony Khan and Shad Khan, who are the owners of the Jacksonville Jaguars. So we're not talking about, an industry of two guys in a garage. We're talking about some pretty big things happening. And it's definitely been a resurgence. And surprisingly, even with COVID, you would think that with COVID, affecting live gatherings and people, being in mass quantities together, the wrestling industry has still thrived and still done very, very well this year. So I think it's interesting to watch the evolution of the business and then overlay your guys' timeline on that, because you have literally all these main points come at very key moments in the business, and shows how connected you guys are to it, which is really cool.
Excellent. Yeah, and it's the most talked about thing on social media whenever it's on TV. And
Yeah.
we're talking competing with Monday Night Football on Monday evenings. WWE Raw is the longest running weekly episodic television show ever, meaning it was on every single Monday since it was incepted. I think in 1993, and it continues to be on every Monday. So it really does have more eyes than can be imagined on it at all times. Let's dive into the products to see how you can jump into the ring and join the Legendary Fighting Federation. And we always recommend starting out with one of these 2-player box sets. I'm showing you 4 of them on the screen here. This is going to get you everything that 2 players need to play Super Show. You're going to get 2 decks, you're going to get 2 dice, which is essential to play the game, the rule book, and you're going to get 4 wrestlers to choose from. This is key because what makes this game so dynamic is that you're able to choose from over 150 different wrestlers in the game that are scattered, released, and I'll get to that later. Simply by taking out the wrestler and their 3 finishing maneuvers, you can play as a completely new wrestler where the combinations will then be endless to see if which 2 wrestlers are going to be in the ring against one another, and they all interact differently. Every wrestler has a unique skill set, which correlates to the dice that I just mentioned, and they each have a unique ability or gimmick, which is a wrestling terminology for what your flavor is. You'll see up there is Sage the Wiccan Witch versus Chamomile Tea. Sage can use her magic, as you can see, or Chamomile Tea might have something up her sleeve with her gimmick. These are the best way for anybody to get started. Right out of the box, you'll have a great time playing these matchups and you can remain competitive immediately. I don't even want to call these starter sets. I want to call these box sets because they're beyond starters. There's some essentials in here, but I've seen folks buy one of these, enter one of my live events, and perform pretty well right out of the box. And these MSRP for just $20. Then we're going to move on to Super Show products, continued here a bit. So like I said, you're able to get different types of wrestlers and different types of maneuvers for your decks. As you can see, we got Brian Cage and Matt Riddle, 2 very successful at the time independent wrestlers, now both signed by Impact Wrestling and WWE. We have them playable in the game, and we also have some other variant maneuvers, sharpshooter, powerbomb, as you can see. The whole flavor here is you can choose between 125 competitors, and you can swap out the different kind of move set to make your deck more dynamic, depending on the gimmicks that you see on the screen. Some cards interact better with certain wrestlers.
And the interesting thing, Matt Riddle has a background in MMA fighting, as do many of the professional wrestlers that are in the industry right now. And that's helping to kind of cross-pollinate, right? It's bringing fans who formerly watched them in MMA to watch them in wrestling and vice versa. So if you have, people in your store as retailers, if you know that they're into MMA or you know that they're into wrestling, it's a great thing to put in front of them for sure.
I completely agree. So let's get into the products that's being offered by GTS right now as well. And I'm going to put them into 2 categories. We have the random products, and then we have the constructed products. All of these are sealed. Let's start off with A and B, the mystery box and the payoff pack. These are both randomized products where you're going to get a set amount of random competitors. And when I say competitor, I mean the wrestler and their 3 signature maneuvers. And you're also going to get a randomized 1 through 27 deck. It's a 30-card deck. 1 through 27 is all of your non-wrestler specific cards in that deck.
That may be a good point to actually talk about something really interesting. So I know one of the first questions people are going to have is probably, is this a collectible card game / trading card game, or is it a living card game? And the interesting thing about the style of this is that while you can customize your deck, like you mentioned, you can buy one of the 2-player packs and be competitive right out of the go. The customization of this is very different than other types of games that you can customize because of those, I guess, slots is the way you would call them, right?
That's correct.
You have that 30-card deck, and there are cards that have number 1, number 2, number 3, and so on, meaning I can only have one number 1 card in my deck. And there's different types of cards that will lead you into these chains of maneuvers. But I think it's interesting because there is a lot of customization to this game, and players who want that depth and that strategy can dive into that. But at the same time, it does not limit anybody from just coming to the game very casually and saying, well, I'm going to buy this product. I'm going to play with what's here and be competitive with what I have, because that's completely 100% viable.
Yeah, it's kind of like we get the best of both worlds, like you said, Scott. It's definitely a collectible card game, but we can't just call it like a Yu-Gi-Oh or Magic the Gathering collectible card game, because the decks are customizable within the realm of reason. And you'll notice right there on the bottom right of those cards on the bottom, the numbers. You're only allowed to have one number 23 in your deck. Now you have various 23s to choose from, and some of them will interact better with some wrestlers than others. But I digress on that. It's a very important topic. So it is kind of the best of both worlds. And when you look at these sealed products A and B, you're going to go ahead and get an array of new competitors to choose from, which are random. And you're also in the payoff pack item B, you're going to get one random 1 through 27 card deck. And in A, you're going to get two random 1 through 27 card decks. Also, you're going to get a dice in B, you're going to get two dice in A. And the reason for this is B is everything one player needs to play the game, and maybe enhance on those starter decks. But A, you get everything that two players need to play the game right out of the box. Plus you get some extra wrestlers, a chance at an autograph card. And the extra flavor makes this very collectible is in item A, the mystery box, you get a random foil competitor set, all 4 cards. And item B, you get a random foil card, which is not a competitor. So it's one of those 1 through 27 cards that I mentioned. Very collectible, highly tradable. And both of these products are set to really enhance your performance in the ring.
So in terms of the collector mentality coming first, you obviously, gamers are always going to be involved. But when you think about stores that may have collectors first and gamers second, the A may be the better option for them with terms of all the foils and the autograph cards and things like that.
Yeah, definitely. And A is the best value on here. There's no question about that.
Yeah, $50 to get all that is very good considering the price of all the other products in the line.
That's right. Yeah, A is just, beyond the best value here. The chance at the autograph alone is an awesome thing as well. And the foil competitor set is just great. You do get a foil in B, but it's only a singular card. But both of those products are truthfully, they keep people coming back for more. They are random. Admittedly, they're more than a wax pack or something would be like a booster. But these are giving you the full flavor of the game, not just a couple of cards here and there. You know what you're getting through that. Now, C and D are more on the constructed side. We'll start with D here. It is a fully customized deck, 1 through 30. You're going to get the competitor. In this case, it's Mars, an SRG original competitor. You're going to get Mars's 3 finishing maneuvers and a 1 through 27 card deck that is listed on the side of the box. Item D is meant for the player who wants a new deck that can play at a very high competitive level right out of the box. You know exactly what you're getting. You can walk into a tournament with D. It was personally designed by some of the best players in the world, and it's a very, very good play right out of the box. While C gets you a full deck, but it's a faction pack. And if you know anything about wrestling, factions are groups of people with like minds, and it's kind of like a team. This is the family faction pack. So you're going to get, it's like the Italian family. I'm Italian, Scott, so some of my friends are in this box right here. You get the Italian Bombada, Lorenzo Monacotti, Maria Marinara. You get all of them in there. And
do you have Uncle Forget About It?
No, but I believe card number 9 in that deck is Forget About It, which is
Forget About It. That's right.
Yeah, it might be. You read the side of the box, but faction packs are meant to give you that same. I know what I'm getting, but it gives you really, really strong deck and a whole theme that goes with it, which we find really interesting.
I think a good thing to point out too is on D, on the Cosmic Crusader structure deck, there's actually 6 different decks of 6 different competitors with that. So while this image shows the Mars one, there are multiple other competitors that you can look at as well.
Yeah, and if I'm a new player starting out here and I know how to play and I want to just, I want to just play something totally new, but I'm not as advanced to try to just build a deck by myself, I pick up one of these and I just have something I can compete and play against anybody with and just have a blast. But kind of the beautiful part about this game, Scott, you're like wrestling. You're never really out of it. There's no way in this game for somebody to win 10 times in a row. Yeah. So it really always gives you a chance to come back and be competitive. I want to spend a little bit of time on the growth of the game. We starting the company in 2014, Kickstarter in 2015. Our sales have grown by 26 times since we originally funded our Kickstarter. And we've seen growth in every single year since we started by at least 45% and as high as 130% within the past 3 years. And even in the COVID-19 environment, which nobody is on a to 2020, we've seen growth of 8 per year. So we're able to continue to perform in the pandemic. We're able to continue to thrive even under these horrible circumstances. And I can show you on the next couple of slides about how we were able to make our business transformative enough to survive in these tough times. But I do want to highlight that we're not slowed down by the pandemic, and we're fully equipped to battle this as long as we need to and have a blast. Now, of course, our bread and competitive play, I'm the head of competitive play. So if you'd like any more inquiries on that, you can reach out to your general manager. That's me with the suit in that first picture, commentating a championship match at a store. When you play Super Show, it is not just, you sit down, you play Magic the Gathering, nobody's talking to each other. It's very serious. This is a wrestling show. You could see all the characters in these photographs. They're encouraged to come, cosplay, have a good time. You're living your wrestling fantasies. You're competing like you're on a wrestling promotion. And that's why you could see we have high profile matches that people talk about on Facebook all the time. They talk about this, Scott, like it's Monday Night Raw. They absolutely love it. And we love bringing it to them this way.
So it's funny, that picture in the bottom that shows the two guys holding up the championship belts. My first ever experience, as John mentioned, was when we got the demo at Origins a couple of years ago. But prior to getting that demo, the first experience I had was, it was probably, I want to say 11 or 11:30 in the evening on Friday night. And we were in the main kind of open gaming hall area, if you can remember what that was like back in the day. And several of my friends and I were playing some games that we had seen that day. And all of a sudden, we just start hearing yelling. Like, I mean, just a gigantic amount of ruckus is coming from the back. And one of my friends jokes, and he's like, God, shut it up. Like, be quiet. Like, what's going on, right? And we turn around, and there's these two tables, and it's just like that picture in the bottom there where you see like just people surrounding the tables. They're all yelling, and then all of a sudden I hear them start chanting, and they start yelling, "This is awesome!" And I'm like, wait a minute, that's a wrestling chant. What's going on there, right?
God, that was the 2018 Origins Finals. I'm surprised.
It was.
That was very loud. I was commentating that whole contest, and it was wonderful. And I deeply miss in-person play for those reasons.
It was amazing, and I remember
that
walking away from that. I was changed by that, because I was like, wow, this is a product that has rabid fans, like just people who absolutely love it and want to eat it up. And really, until we started working together back in 2018, and I failed to mention this at the beginning, but SRG is an exclusive partner of GTS. So in terms of distribution, we're the place to come pick up the product. But until we started working, as a fan of the show, the only way I could really get it was either through you directly, if I either participated in that first Kickstarter or contacted you directly, or I had to bug my local game store and say, hey, go get this, like contact these guys, get this game. And I think that's one of the big things we've obviously been able to help with is, we've given a lot more retail presence to the game for you guys over the last couple of years. And it's just been really fun, because I've had some retailers who have contacted me. When we first brought you guys on, we had a couple of people ping me, and they were like, wrestling? Like, really? Like this is what this is a big thing? And we were like, yeah, no, we definitely ask your fans, right? Ask your consumers that walk in if they're interested in this type of product. And I remember I had one retailer who contacted me back and told me, he goes, I probably wouldn't know an arm bar from a headlock, but this is great.
One's an arm, one's a head, man. Come on.
Right. He's like, I got 13 people in the store every Saturday. They're playing the game. I love it. And yeah, it was just really, really cool to see. It's definitely one of those things that, obviously, if you have passion for the product like you or I do or Steve does, it's an easy thing to get into. But even if you don't, as a retailer, you don't need to know everything about wrestling. You just need to know, hey, this is a highly competitive card game that offers people that flexibility, and it just kind of brings people into that shared experience.
Yeah, and it's a good segue there, because I want to talk a little bit about the retail stores and how we run them. We run the retail stores like local wrestling promotions. Many of these stores, they pick up the game, they start to build a little bit of a player base. Soon the store has either a weekly league or periodic tournaments. The store has a champion of the store. And it's my job as the general manager or head of competitive play to constantly talk about that store, hype it up, hype up who their champion is, make people want to visit the store to challenge for that store's championship belt and stuff like that. So as we have retail partners who work with us, it's my responsibility to help your store grow and give you the best guidelines, prize support, best practice, advertising materials, and such like that. So I appreciate Scott helping make those connections, and we're really hoping that there could be a great wrestling promotion. You better come up with a good name, retail partners. You know, that's all.
There you go. The Retail Wrestling Federation.
Retail Wrestling Federation. I love. I've got a wonderful store up in North Olmsted, Ohio, that calls himself Rust Belt Wrestling. You know, Ohio's in the Rust Belt region. Just all these creative names. It's excellent. But, you know, in the pandemic, you don't see any photos like this. So we're going to move to this, which is what we've been doing this year. So we're maintaining that competitive play, but we are in the realm of online play. And our game is unique in a way where you can easily play it over a webcam, where we constantly talk about the best practices of doing that, which you can see in the bottom right-hand side of the presentation. This is a recent tournament that we did where both the players were at the bottom. You could see everything they have in play, their dice areas. You have commentators for these so people can watch it on Twitch. And so people know what's going on in the match. And just imagine watching any sport or wrestling, how, you know, you could watch this as a sport, watch these two people play, and I'm commentating the match, or one of my partners are. And, you know, we book these like a wrestling show, like a big title match. We have regional championships or national championships, physical belts that we pass around this community when somebody's a champion. You know, I myself one day hope to be world champion, but currently I just haven't been able to get the job done. And I do a weekly show each Wednesday night with my team called Talk of the Universe, where we talk about what's going on nationally in Super Show. What makes us different is me and Steve have a tremendous passion about this, and it's our job to stay engaged with our community and talk about this and hype up what's going on. So the play is always live, and we are very reachable, and we just love to connect with our player base. And to contact us, you could feel free to go to supershowthegame.com. You could reach out to me directly. I have my email address on here. And the most important part of this slide, Scott, if you want a demo as a retailer and you're not sold immediately on the product, if you want to just reach out to us at sales@srguniverse.com, we will send you a deck. You can, and we'll set up an appointment for you and Steve Resk, who's the creator of the game, and we will give you that demo experience that Scott talked about at the beginning of this show. And our job is to show you how much fun this game is. And another thing that I think is a huge selling point of this game is it only takes 5 minutes to learn. It's a very, very quick game. Matches are about 10 minutes at most. And they're just quick, back and forth. Anybody could win. I promise you're going to have a good time. If you want to reach out to us, just get a demo. We're more than happy to show you.
Yeah, I cannot stress enough how important that would be for any of the retailers watching this right now. I mean, it's always good when a publisher can offer resources like that to the retailers themselves. But when a publisher is willing to, come online, be able to talk with you guys and walk you through that experience, that just helps you both get more comfortable with the product from a retail perspective, but also be able to kind of take the bits and pieces from that experience and then translate it into your own demos. We know from everything that's happened this year, in-store gameplay has changed dramatically. And while there are some stores that have an opportunity to be able to do that, demos in our case have really become displays, and they've really gone from here's a product that we're going to sit down and teach you how to play to here's a product and how it looks, and here is the elevator pitch, here's the 30-second one-liner that's going to hook people into it. Being able to see Steve and John give that type of presentation about it, it's just really, really exciting stuff to do. So I would highly recommend to all the retailers watching, definitely reach out to the guys at sales@srguniverse.com. Go through that process and they'll get you set up. And I promise you'll have a hard time not being hooked after you get the full experience.
And if you beat the boss in the ring on your very first try, you make sure he doesn't forget it, because he don't like to hear that.
That's a good point.
Scott, did I beat you? I can't remember.
I can tell you that these guys do not play nice. They play for blood.
I just acknowledge I want to be world champion one day. I got to go for the belt. Right. I'm not going to lose to a jobber like Scott Morris.
I do think that's one of the most compelling things about the game, right? When you look at the entire market, about the trading card game market and the collectible card games and even the living card games, even though there are the staples, like you mentioned Yu-Gi-Oh!, you mentioned Magic, Fantasy Flight has had some pretty heavy staples, between Arkham Horror card game and Marvel Champions and things like that. The players who are into those are always constantly looking for something new. They're looking for something different. And while they always fall back to the bread and butter, the mainstays in those kind of genres or areas, they're always on that quest to find that next game. And I remember several years ago, I remember seeing Star Realms for the first time. And it was a card game that was developed by players of Magic the Gathering that had that drafting mechanism in it. And I remember watching people at stores who were Magic players dropping $20, $25, $30 on these cards just to get them so they could play them in between their rounds of Magic the Gathering or in between their rounds of Yu-Gi-Oh! And I started to realize very quickly, hey, these are guys who look for something to kind of fill that gap, right? Because while there's so much going on when you do have in-store gameplay, there's still those downtimes where people want the 10-minute, 15-minute little quick, jolt, so to speak. And I remember when you gave me the first demo that I had at Origins, it was a very quick demo. I think it lasted like 8 minutes or 9 minutes. And the very first thing out of my mouth was, let's do that again. Like it was like immediately.
Because you lost.
There was right. There was no question around, like, I didn't feel like I lost and, it wasn't a good experience. I felt like I lost. I had fun. I want to play again. And I want to learn more about this, right? Just as a gaming perspective. And I think that's one of the cool things is that this game both offers players an entire world to dive into and just submerge themselves in, but it also offers players an escape from what they do normally dive into and immerse themselves in as a new kind of distraction to what they've been playing on a regular basis, which is great because it just fires on all cylinders then.
And the thing I'll close with here from my standpoint is we have a saying around here at SRG Universe that it's our community and family first, that's our players, and competition is a close second. This game is highly competitive, but I strongly urge you to see the health and the strength of this community by going on to, we have a Facebook discussion group. Everybody on there is active, constantly posting, supporting each other on a personal level. Players know each other. It's like it's wrestling as a family, and as we get in the ring with one another and play this game, and we cut video promos on each other, like I'm coming for you on this Thursday night. Behind the scenes, we all just love each other, and we're just out here trying to entertain everybody and entertain each other. And we will welcome you in with open arms. And I just can't wait to see you all in the ring with me.
That's awesome.
Make sure you be friends with the general manager after all.
That's right. That's right. Well, John, thank you. I really appreciate you taking the time to come talk to us. I'm going to make sure that when we post this on YouTube that there's links in the description for all the products that you can find on GTS's website. Like we mentioned, you can more than welcome retailers reach out to John and Steve directly. That sales@srguniverse.com is the best way to reach them. You can ask them any kind of questions you've got about the game itself, or like John had mentioned, grab a free demo, have that experience and learn more about the game overall. And of course, if you have any questions, you're always welcome to contact me directly as well. My email is just smorris@gtsdistribution.com. But till we see you next time, John, thank you so much. Retailers, thank you so much for watching this. If you're watching this on YouTube right now, feel free to subscribe to our channel so you can get all the latest updates when we have new webinars available for you. And we really greatly appreciate your partnership, and we hope that everyone has a wonderful holiday season. Thanks so much. Take care.